I want to understand, what's the politics of crime?
The politics of crime?
Yeah.
Wow. That's an area that I'm... Wow, that's a good question.
It's not just the crime by itself, but the politics of it. Because people on different sides of the politics see crime very differently. And they're looking at crime very differently, which means the policy decisions are very different from two different lenses, whether it's the left or the right or the center.
Okay.
So what's your observation of the younger people, the middle-aged people, and the whole demographic of people who are committing crimes?
I just want to outline that I'm not an expert.
Yeah.
I'm just some ex-cop.
Your personal view.
When you say the politics of crime, that's a fairly broad area. You mentioned left, right, centre in terms of political leaning. Could you sort of I'm trying to pick an angle to look at this from, because it's a massive area. Would you be able to sort of...
So let me rephrase.
No.
I'll rephrase the same question and then simplify it.
Sorry. Yeah.
So then we can go step up. If you have to, in your observation of your career with crime happening, with different demographics,
yes.
and with the changing in political environment,
yes.
How does the policy angle would change the application of the force, the application of the execution of what you can and can't do across because you would have seen multiple governments, state and commonwealth, across that period. So that's what was the angle I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, how does the political leanings of the day affect the way that the executive police, the police force as being one of the executive components of government, how does that change what the police do? It's big. That's a big question. So that's more of a strategic thing, and remembering I was a senior constable, not a strategist of any sort. But the general view and opinion is that it is very... the law should be executed in a consistent manner. Mm-hmm. There should be fair and just application of legal principle and justice. And although the executive has very little part to play in the application of justice, they present a case to the judiciary, and the judiciary then take that information from the executive and they make a decision. And in particular about crime, they look at the person that's alleged to have committed the crime, got a presumption of innocence, all that sort of stuff. And it does appear that political whims and fancies wash through the legislation, and where they can't wash through the legislation because the legislation might be too cumbersome or hard to change, they will just change the way that the police department operate. For example, there was young offenders can be an issue in different parts of the state, and I'll just put it bluntly, Indigenous young offenders in certain parts of the state can overwhelm a policing response in terms of volume, and then the lack of judicial intervention, because you go easier on young offenders because they still got stuff to learn before they hit 18 years of age or they become adult. So you don't want to load a young person up with all these charges and a background and a negative interaction with police, and that sets them off on a bad foot when they become an adult. So I understand that the young offenders get treated differently. That's fine. And that's a tiered approach, depending on how young and how old they are. However, it has happened many times over the past where certain managers within the department have issued edicts or issued instructions as how to deal with them, and to go really lenient or to not do anything at all. Well, you will do this in these circumstances, and you will not. What I'm saying is these are the instructions that are given out to the officers, the constables and sergeants and all the general troops on the ground that are actually enforcing the law. So that, I think there is some not inconsistent application based on political, and though we can only guess at where those instructions come from above, but not that I want to just keep bringing it back to my story, but it's the one that's been put right in front of my face. It's quite obvious that there was, to me, it's quite obvious that there was a centralisation of power that was gleefully grappled with and taken on board in COVID. And the police commissioner, who's now the governor, I believe there's a strong centralisation of power that occurred between the police and the Premier. However, the Premier's job is to lead the executive, which begs the question about the structure. What is the appropriate relationship between the legislature and the executive? And when you have a position such as Premier, which it's probably well needed, what is the appropriate relationship that should exist between the Premier and the Commissioner of Police, or the Commissioner for this or the Commissioner for that?